Life appears to go on calmly in Nigeria despite an attempted coup by dissident
Since the
junior
military
officers.
coup d'etat of January 15, 1966, many people have continued to argue about the agenda of the mutineers. While some have described it as a poorly executed national exercise, others see it as a grand plot by a section of the country to seize power and to dominate others. So, what exactly was the agenda of the plotters? Was it truly a national exercise, or was Nzeogwu a victim of unknown conspiracy? In order to find out what actually was the agenda of the plotters, I am going to examine two different ideological blocs that may have taken part in that coup. Welcome to this edition of Hispu Media. Gabriel here. A lot has been said about the January 15, 1966 coup in Nigeria. However, for the sake of those who may not be fully aware, let me give a brief summary before we proceed to the main point of today. In the early hours of January 15, 1966, Major Kaduna Nzeogwu led a group of officers on a military exercise that would become the first military coup d'etat in the country. Nzeogwu and his group attacked the official residence of the Premier of the North, Sir Ahmadu Bello, murdering him in the process. Throughout the country, Prime Minister, a federal minister, two regional premiers and top army officers from the northern and the western regions of the nation were brutally murdered. In part of the south, the premier of the eastern and the midwestern regions, the president of the federation, and many army officers were notably spared. Though the president was out of the country at the time, apparently after he was tipped off. But before we return to the main story, kindly take a moment to like this video and please subscribe to Hispu Media if you have not done so already. It will go a long way to support our effort. Thank you. Generally, the coup had failed, and Nzeogwu, who carried out the killings in the north, was later arrested in Lagos on January 18, 1966. It is important to note that Nzeogwu could not have been responsible for sparing politicians and army officers in the south, particularly in the east, during the coup. This is more so because he was in charge of the north, while fellow plotters from the east were in charge of the eastern region. The coup failed because one of those who was marked for elimination in the original plan, GOC, Major General Aguiyi seemed to have outmaneuvered the plotters and suppressed the rebellion. The rest of what followed have been covered in several videos that I will link in the description and in the cards here. But since this military coup took place, many have continued to argue about the agenda of the coup plotters. While some have described the coup as a poorly executed national exercise, others see it as a grand plot by a section of the country to seize power. However, Abdulrazak Hamzat, in an online article, victim of unknown conspiracy in Nigeria's January 15, 1966 coup d'etat, is of the opinion that the coup seemed to be carried out by two ideological blocs. According to him, this may have been unknown to some of the plotters, particularly Nzeogwu, who was known as a visible leader of the coup. Hamzat continued, the first ideological bloc includes those who genuinely believe in the coup as a national exercise and are patriotic enough to want to lay their lives for the prosperity of the country. The group consists of Nzeogwu and a few others. He described the second ideological bloc as, quote, those plotters that were tribalistic in motive but displayed patriotic outlook to convince others of their dedication to the national exercise. This group is represented primarily by those who were supposed to execute a coup in the eastern part of the country and probably some from among those who were to execute the coup in the western region. Meanwhile, this is how the inner circle of the plotters emerged. In August 1965, three officers, Major Donatus Okafor, Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna, and Captain Oji, were already dissatisfied with political development in the Federation and the impact of these developments on the army, held a series of discussions between them about the matter and set about the task of searching for other officers who held views similar to theirs and who could eventually be trusted to join them in the enterprise of staging a military coup d'etat. In September 1965, Major Humphrey Chukwuka of the Nigerian Army Headquarters, Lagos, was persuaded to join the group of conspirators. His recruitment was followed in October 1965 by Major Chris Anuforo, also of the Army Headquarters. Major C.K. Nzeogwu was brought in around that time through the effort of Major Anuforo, an old friend of both Nzeogwu and Okafor. Nzeogwu in turn secured the services and the support of Major Adewale Ademoyega, who had worked with him in the Nigerian Army Training College in Kaduna. By early November, the recruiting activities of the group were completed and an inner circle of the conspirators emerged. So, does this suggest that the coup may have been initiated by the second ideological bloc before Nzeogwu was recruited? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Some have, however, gone as far as suggesting that the plotters were being pushed by some hidden hands with political interest in the background, but there is no credible evidence to support this claim. So, why was Nzeogwu recruited? It is a well-documented fact that Nzeogwu resented the way the country was being governed at that time. He harbored anti-government sentiment for several years before 1966. His speech after he successfully executed the coup in the northern part of this country may have supported this. I have covered the full speech in the video displayed in the card here and that I will link in the description. Nevertheless, Nzeogwu was well respected in the north despite being of Eastern origin. It became very clear that the only person capable of successfully executing the plot in the northern region was a man like Kaduna Nzeogwu. Also, knowing how much Nzeogwu was willing to get rid of the enemies of his beloved nation, it became very easy to bring him on board. Nzeogwu had in the past had a brush with his boss at the Nigerian Military Training College, Colonel Ralph Shodende. Mark Siolin, in his book Oil, Politics and Violence, Nigeria's Military Coup Culture, revealed that Colonel Ralph Shodende had in the past reported Nzeogwu to Army Headquarters for allegedly disseminating anti-government rhetoric to junior officers. For those who believe that Nzeogwu's participation was part of a grand Igbo plot to dominate the country, Mark Siolin argues that this school of thought overlooks the fact that Nzeogwu was only Igbo in name. He was born and raised in the north. He spoke fluent Hausa language and was given the name Kaduna because of his affinity with the city of his birth. With all this in place, the plotters needed someone with enough credibility to gain the confidence of junior officers in the north. Clearly, Nzeogwu was recruited to fill this strategic vacuum. Even if some of the coup plotters had sectional interests, Nzeogwu was probably not one of them. Some commentators, including Abdurazak Hamzat, argued that Nzeogwu may not have been aware that some of the plotters harbored sectional interest rather than national interest. Their interest lies in the outcome of the coup rather than in the reason or aim of the coup. For this group of people, while Nzeogwu and few others were on a national assignment, others were fulfilling their sectional interest. For instance, Major Kaduna Nzeogwu later accused Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna of bungling or ignoring an apparent understanding to assassinate General Aguironsi in Lagos. For Nzeogwu, this was an oversight or, quote, a misguided consideration that caused the failure of the coup. In fact, Nzeogwu declared publicly that the execution of the coup in the south was tribalistic. Captain Emmanuel Nwoboshi, leader of the operations in the western region, has since corroborated the view that operations in Lagos were compromised by nepotism. For these and other reasons, some analysts have come to view Nzeogwu as a victim of unknown conspiracy. After all, available information indicates that he was recruited about 2 months after the plot was conceived and initiated. However, in the recent research I have carried out concerning this coup, which I will publish in the video that is coming after this one, Nzeogwu initiated the idea while they were on a military course in India in 1964. So please take a moment to subscribe to this channel and on the bell notification so you will not miss this episode that is coming after this one. Thank you. In 1967, when Ojukwu declared secession from Nigeria after the counter-coup in July of 1966, Nzeogwu was one of the few military voices against the coup. Though Major Ifeajuna was executed along with others for negotiating with the federal government and planning to overthrow the Biafran leader, the war had already started. Other coup plotters were largely silent. They never cared about Nigeria at this time. Just before the civil war, Nzeogwu publicly expressed opposition to the war. He said, "In the first place, secession would be ill-advised, indeed impossible. Even if the East fight a war of secession and wins, it still cannot succeed." Nzeogwu went further. "Personally, I don't like secession, and if this country disintegrates, I shall pack up my things and go. In the present circumstance, confederation is the best answer as a temporary measure. In time, we shall have complete unity." In a letter to his friend, General Olusegun Obasanjo, Nzeogwu clarified that he and Ojukwu see things obviously differently. The letter also read in part, "I will create a new Nigerian army inside Biafra with Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba and all other ethnic groups." This statement is a pointer to the fact that even inside Biafra while the war was about to begin, Nzeogwu was still committed to building a great Nigeria. When he was later asked about the tribal influence in executing the January 1966 coup in an interview with Ejendu in 1967, Nzeogwu responded, "In the north, no. In the south, yes." For him, the other three who were stationed in the south failed because of incompetence and misguided consideration in the 11th hour. Nzeogwu's submission clearly revealed the possibility of a conspiracy among those in the south. Clearly, while Nzeogwu may have been committed to a national exercise, some of his co-conspirators had other plans. So, was Nzeogwu a victim of unknown conspiracy? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Despite killing some of the revered political military leaders of the northern region during the coup, those who knew him, including northerners, described him as a patriotic officer who did what he did out of patriotism. He was given a state burial by the Gowon regime. Major General Yakubu Gowon, the then head of state, described Nzeogwu as a detribalized Nigerian. According to General Olusegun Obasanjo, Nzeogwu was both a Nigerian and a Pan-Africanist, a kind-hearted, open and generous man who dreamed of a country free of graft and greed. Major General Olufemi Olutoye described him as a very good person and a very kind and truthful personality. General Domkat Bali said, "We believe that he, Nzeogwu, was a very genuinely patriotic officer who organized 1966 coup with the best of intentions, who was let down by his collaborators. If we had captured him alive, we would not have killed him. I believe he probably would have been tried for his role in the January 15 coup, jailed and probably freed after some time. His death was regrettable." So, what is your thought on Nzeogwu? Do you think he was a victim of unknown conspiracy? Let me know in the comment section. For more on how Nzeogwu died, please check the video displayed here. Don't forget to like this video and please subscribe to Hispo Media if you have not done so already. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.